What's up, guys, gals, and non-binary pals? Welcome back to my channel. I'm Ann Richmond, aka Hearthsinger, the head bard in charge around these parts. In my last video, I focused completely on how to build an active D&D character through a carefully crafted backstory, something that always drives you towards a prime objective, so that you always have something that you're reaching for. But it's just one way to go about it. There is, as Yoda would say, another. So in this video, we're going to be taking the opposite approach. We are going to be talking about the concept of character front story. Rather than having a tragic backstory to lean upon, you're going to be focused on everything that is actively happening at the table so that you can take advantage of it in the moment. Let's get into front story. If you're somebody who has trouble distinguishing between what an active choice is and a passive choice is, it's easy to get caught up and overwhelmed by the weight of a backstory. The concept of front story allows you to step away from all of that and let things develop organically at the table. It can be a little scary to jump off that cliff, but it can be a wild ride. So if you're going to go with the character front story method, you have to get used to saying yes and. Yes and is a tool that improvisers use while on stage to take what their partner hands them, accept it, and elevate what they've said by returning the ball to the other side of the court with whatever they're adding to the scene. Or in this case, our D&D story. We aren't focusing on improvisation in a comedy context, but the rule still applies and it helps you stay loose and open to anything that could happen. Aside from the context of safety at your table, it's always going to be more fun to say yes to an idea than no. When you say no, you completely shut down the other people's ideas and it stops the action. To be clear, in other contexts, saying no and consent is absolutely important. I am simply saying that within the concept of front story, saying yes at the table in this way is more about saying yes to the action of the story and being able to fly on the fumes of inspiration rather than constantly being in your head. So keep that in mind. The easiest way to free yourself from the shackles of personal responsibility towards a character that can start driving you down the backstory path is to randomize character creation. Log into D&D Beyond, go to the character creator, and you can actually select the level that you want your character to be and click randomize, and it'll do everything for you. It'll give you a name, it'll give you a race, it'll give you a D&D class, it'll choose your spells, so you can simply open it up and be surprised and inspired by the potential adventure that could await you. You won't get stuck in choices you always tend to make, and that can be really fun. A lot of times, especially for newer players, the whole allure of the game is getting to choose the type of character you might be. But the D&D site has you covered. They have pre-generated characters at different levels, different races and classes, so you can just choose from one of those and then get what you get. Removing the process of character creation can be kind of helpful to just let them dive straight into the story and start having a good time. Of course, it's important that everyone understands why their statistics are the way that they are and how the game functions, the rules, and yada yada. This is just one method. If you think it's going to weigh you down, just jump right in. The key to front story, in my opinion, is that you should really get these characters in hand only about 10 minutes before the game starts. That's when the yes and is truly afoot. For front story, these 10 minutes before the adventure begins are absolutely crucial. You and the GM need to sit down together and discuss very basic concepts. Does the party know each other already? Are there certain points of connection for some people, but others are totally new? Start basing that out, and then each person needs to be able to vocalize why they are, in fact, going on an adventure. Don't get too granular here. It can simply be, man, I really need work right now. Or I'm a thrill seeker and I can't get enough of getting myself into deadly situations. Or I got a thirst for treasure on my last job and I just can't help myself. The glittering of gleaming gold lures me forward. Beyond establishing the seed for why you're going on an adventure, be careful not to focus on anything that goes beyond what the current circumstances for the party are going to be. You'll discover everything else at the table as the story unfolds. Before we get into what you need to do once you actually, start playing a game of D&D with Front Story, I wanted to say I really enjoy making this type of content, and I hope that if you're enjoying yourself or finding this useful, that you'll give this video a like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you get an update every single time I put out a new video. So once you actually start the adventure, the next step is to use assumption triggers to create a game out of establishing facts about the other characters at the table. In improv, you would call this giving people gifts. This is a chance to further establish rapport, create some fun moments of connection in the moment at the table, and of course, establish the given relationships between the adventurers. And all it is writing other people's choices and providing them little nuggets of inspiration of things your character has witnessed them do to give them something to base their character front story off of. For example, your quest giver might say, Mithra is a hag of great importance and power, so be on your guard, alright? Then a swaggering half-orc barbarian might respond, Ha! That'll be hard for Pete. Our bard's a sucker for a pretty face. Know what I mean? Then the gnome bard steps up, wringing his hands, and says, Dude, you gotta stop bringing him up. I'm Kevin. You keep living in the past and seeing my dead twin in my eyes. We're a one-bard party now, Ruth. Get used to it. Then the old wizard closes her dusty tome as the human looks over her spectacles at you and says, Give the old rage bag a break. After all, she hasn't quite been herself since that last resurrection. I'm not sure it was very good. And she's Professor McGonagall for no reason, I guess. I just go with it. In that exchange, after the GM establishes kind of what the quest might be about, the half-orc was able to use that to determine that the bard was a lech. Easy, I know, but hey, it's an assumption trigger. Then the bard was able to establish that he was once traveling in the party with his twin brother who was killed on their last job, and following that, the wizard speaks up to say yes, and the half-orc barbarian also died on that job, and the resurrection has been a little shoddy. And each one of those things can create inspiration for more fun party dynamics down the road. There's also an opportunity for the GM to get in on the action, bringing in long-lost parents, lost old flames, arrival from Bard College, anything. But rather than having established all those things ahead of time, when they bring those things to the table in a front story style game, just go with it. Say, yes, that is my brother. Don't say, no, I've never seen that man in my life. Just say yes and see where it takes you. The key with this is that everyone sort of has to agree to the concept of saying yes to everyone's assumptions. That being said, you're also agreeing to make each other happy at the table. So if someone makes an assumption about a character and the person playing that character stops the game and says, hey, I really don't like that. Can you please make a different assumption about my character? I don't want to play a character like that. For instance, if I were that bard and someone was like, the bard is a lech, I would just be like, can you just make a different choice? Because I don't want to play a lecherous bard. I know. Shocking. It's really about communicating at the table. All of these tips and tricks all come down to communication after all. That's what the game is about. So listen to your friends, and if they want to sort of move backwards and redo something, just let it happen. Make sure everybody is having a good time, but don't be afraid to make a big choice or do something that scares you if you feel safe going for it. Then, as you get deeper into the adventure and plot hooks start inspiring you, always feel like you can reach out to your GM and say, hey, I kind of love this whole underground society in Waterdeep. Would there be a way to tie my character's backstory into that? And that'll keep them fueled with new inspiration. DMs can get tired or stuck too. Constantly getting ideas from the party can help them freshen up the adventure and keep things fun. As a bard myself, I can attest that everybody needs inspiration every now and again. I got to experiment with this concept last week on my Twitch channel when we did our yes and completely randomized game. And the randomization didn't just stop with the characters that we made in D&D Beyond. I actually used randomization to generate elements of the plot as well about an hour before we went live, and it was a fantastic experience. I was going to include pieces of that in this video, but I think it might be a second video. So if you're a GM who is watching this and interested in how you can use randomization on your side of the table, make sure you're subscribed because I'm sure I'll put out a video on it eventually. I also have a Patreon where I put out podcasts every week about tabletop RPGs and video games and all sorts of nerd culture badassery. So I encourage you to check that out. It's patreon.com/hearthsingergames, and there is probably a tier with something for everybody. So go check it out, and I hope you'll join the Baby Bard family. I'll see you next Wednesday with a new video and a new adventure. In the meantime, get out there and live your quest life. Bye!